On today's BTS podcast, I'm thrilled to have Parveen Kumari-Reynolds, or as she prefers to be called, Parvs, joining us. Parvs is a registered nutritional therapist with a diploma in Naturopathic Nutritional Therapy from the College of Naturopathic Medicine. She lives in Warwickshire with her husband and daughter and has an inspiring story about transforming her health and her career. After spending over 20 years in the demanding corporate financial services world, Parvs realised the toll it was taking on her health. When her daughter was born in 2015, she decided to make a significant change, leading her to discover the profound effect of nutrition on her well-being. Today, she dedicates her life to helping others achieve their health goals through informed food choices and lifestyle choices. I'll be delving into her journey, her work as a nutritionist, and how she balances running a business with a young family. Parvs, welcome to the BTS podcast. Really good to have you on the show today. I'm really excited about what we're going to learn and find out over the next half an hour, 40 minutes.
That's great. Thanks,
Are you ready?
Paul.
Are you ready?
I am, yeah.
Tell us more about your journey from the corporate financial world to becoming a registered nutritional therapist.
Yeah, sure. So I spent over 20 years in the corporate financial services life, which I absolutely loved and enjoyed every moment of it, I have to say. But the changes really came from me having my little girl. So I left Leeds Building Society, and by the way, Louisa was the best manager ever that I've ever had.
Louisa Cedric.
Yes, just to clarify, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I went
She is that famous. She's like Madonna, isn't she? Sorry to go. She's like Madonna. You know, she just gets called by like the one name, you know.
Yeah, she does. Everyone knows.
You don't need to say the second name.
You don't have to say her surname.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go on, carry on.
No, not at all.
So you're at the Leeds.
Yeah, I was at Leeds. I left to go on maternity leave to have my daughter. I had every intention of going back to that world because I didn't really know of anything else and never really thought of anything else. But however, when I had my little girl, it kind of became very apparent that logistically, I'm not going to be able to go back to what I was doing. So I decided that I'd take a little bit of time out and use that time really to focus probably more on myself and my daughter at that time. So I thought I'd use that time to do that. I decided that if I was taking a little bit of time out for myself, I decided that, you know, I had over this period of time, I'd put on quite a lot of weight. I was really unhappy with myself. And I decided that I'd try Slimming World for the next kind of diet or so, just to lose some weight. That was the only intention. So I decided I'd go on to Slimming World. And from that, yes, I did lose weight. But then I very quickly realised that it wasn't just about that. I don't know how they do it now, but back then when I did it, they penalise you for having an avocado, but you could have as many kind of Muller Lights as you could, as many as you liked. So I kind of quickly just thought to myself,
it was a low fat, at the time it was a low fat sort of regime, if you like.
Yeah. It was just like, you know, well, I just want to lose weight. That's what I'm going to do. And whilst, yes, I did lose weight, but very quickly I started to ask myself questions about how can healthy food not be good for you in this diet? There's got to be more to this. From that, I decided that I wanted to kind of delve a little bit more into, I just wanted to know, I wanted somebody to tell me what was good for me in terms of eating, what should I be eating and what should I be avoiding.
Yeah.
And effectively, I wanted a meal plan. I wanted somebody just to write it down for me and say, this is what you need to eat. If you eat this, you lose weight. That's it. I went off and looked for a nutritionist from that. And a nutritionist absolutely helped. And I then realized it wasn't just about food. It wasn't just about what you ate, because a nutritionist came as a holistic approach, which I'm sure we'll cover on a little bit later. But I realized very quickly that not only did I lose weight, I felt better. the energy levels, my sleep, everything. And I was so impressed with the results from that. I decided, actually, this is it. This is what I want to do. So I kind of then researched some nutrition courses and decided that that's what I wanted to study. So I studied for 3 years, a whole year of biomedicine and then 2 years of nutrition, including clinic as well. And this is
how
was
much
my
of
journey.
an eye opener was? Yeah, how much of an eye opener was that journey and that education for you?
Oh, just unbelievable in terms of how the body works. Looking at all the diseases, what are the causes, but how food works and how that helps with, not just your diet and energy, but your mental health, your anxiety, your stress levels, all the gut issues that everyone seems to struggle with, what you can do with food to help reduce those symptoms.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure we'll speak about it further, but touching on foods that cause inflammation. Inflammation, I'm learning, causes a heck of a lot of difficulties in the body.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I work with a lot of my clients, one of the first things that we look at is an anti-inflammatory diet, just for that reason alone. So it's really quite important that we look at foods that reduce inflammation in us, because that kind of goes on to cause lots of issues and diseases.
So how did changing your diet impact your energy levels and your mental clarity?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, what I realised was that it wasn't just diet; it's actually lifestyle that plays a big role in it as well.
Right.
It was, yes, it was.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, sure. It was sorting out my diet. So I've been vegetarian for over 25 years. So it was understanding foods around protein, really, for me. And then the mental clarity was really more around, yes, the foods that I ate, but it was also about the mindset. It was about movement. It was about, it was about sleep. It was about supplements. It was about kind of testing. You could do so many different tests for gut issues in particular. So knowing that I had all these options to have a look at some of my symptoms, it was just an absolute an eye opener for me. It meant I slept better. It meant I was actually more confident. I had energy levels, increased energy levels, and I just felt just as though I was a new person. And that in itself was kind of, the turning point for me.
A similar experience for me was that all my life I've had, well, I say all my life, up until maybe the last 10 years, 15 years or so, really bad IBS. And just thought it was me, just thought it was my nervous disposition, if you like, until I understood that I have an intolerance to gluten. And I was actually, it was after the credit crunch, and those that know me know this, and those that don't, is that I'd actually been to catering college for 4 years to train as a chef, alongside the stuff I do in financial services, and always with a dream of opening a restaurant. And I did open that restaurant. And I actually trained, specialized in bread, boulangerie, and patisserie, so I could make pretty much any bread-based product or wheat flour-based product that you care to mention. And I'd opened a restaurant, and I was making pizza in there, and I was making it from scratch, and was making up sourdoughs and stuff. And I was, you can imagine, constantly tasting that all the time, and it got to the stage where I was really quite ill with IBS symptoms, and I started to self-analyze and say, what's going on? And yes, there was a lot of stress at the time, but I recognized I was eating a heck of a lot of bread, and even though that was the stuff I was making, on top of that, I was eating processed wheat-based products, gluten. And so I actually cut dairy out first. I thought it could be that, and cut down on sugar, etc. And then when I cut out wheat, it was life-changing. I had never experienced such high energy levels. My stomach didn't look like a barrel, and it did. I would say I'd look and go, oh my God, I'm not slim, but I used to think, I must have put on a heck of a lot of weight, and I hadn't. And this was all inflammation within a few weeks. It was incredible how different I felt, how calm my digestive system was. Also, anxiety levels had reduced, all those sort of things. And it was, I thought all my life I have been fighting against something that my body is trying to fight off, and I've not even realized it. Which is, and there are so many people out there with similar issues.
There is, isn't it incredible that you make one small change? Yes, you were eating bread every single day, but isn't it incredible that you make that simple change and what the positive effects for you were? There's a lot of foods that contain gluten, and but it's very interesting when I've got to pull together a protocol for a client. You've got to really hold them through it, because it's absolutely overwhelming and it's confusing. Although most kind of restaurants, if you are out and about eating, most restaurants nowadays are really good, aren't they? They're really accommodating for it.
Are there any other food types, any other examples of foods or areas that really cause issues with people generally?
Generally, as you say, it's wheat, the gluten side. Dairy can also be a big issue with a lot of clients and a lot of people that consume it, but actually don't know that. But I think most of all is actually processed foods, just processed foods, something that we have out of a packet, something that's got a really long shelf life. And something that we don't really think twice about putting into the oven and, having. I think that is probably the biggest challenge, which is the Western diet, as we call it. So all the processed foods that we consume, and actually generally perhaps feel that they are fairly healthy, but it's kind of going back to wholesome foods usually, and that is then going back to the anti-inflammatory diet.
And can you share some examples of foods that you found particularly beneficial in boosting energy, mental clarity?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's always going back to, when I speak to my clients, it's always going back to whole foods. Be that your good quality protein, your meats, your chicken, your lentils, your eggs, fish, all of that, your nuts, your seeds. It's going back to basics and cooking with basics. But then it's also things like making sure that you have got like a balanced plate, as so to speak. So you've got your protein, you've got your carbohydrates, and when we look at carbohydrates, it's more complex carbohydrates, like your sweet potato, your brown rice, for example. So making sure that we've got that, especially when we're talking in the diet culture. The minute you talk about fats and carbohydrates, you hear very regularly, oh no, I'm not, I'm on a diet, can't have any carbohydrates, can't have any fats. And again, making sure we have the right fats, the healthy omega-3 fats on our plate, your oily fish, your avocado, your nuts, your seeds. All of that is making sure, but we don't realize how important they are for not just our health and energy, but it's for brain health. It's for our hormones. It's really important, and it helps with inflammation as well, to help reduce that.
On that, talking about whole foods, how do they affect mental health, particularly in anxiety, stress? what should somebody be avoiding? What should somebody be eating if they are in, they are undergoing stress at the moment, they're feeling
Sure.
anxious?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's always looking at a whole diet. It's looking at trying to cook from fresh. Always appreciate that.
Mm,
You can't always do that with the lifestyle that we lead.
mm,
Totally get that. But it's things like eating regularly. So don't skip your meals. So have your breakfast, have your lunch, and have your dinner. And then that is
mm,
going to help. That is going to help us to maintain our blood sugar levels. And by doing that, it means that we're not then snacking in between. So we're not reaching for those crisps or that bar of chocolate or that
mm,
coffee, that we need in between. So it's about eating regularly, eating 3 full meals, eating whole foods. So going back to, your fruit, your veg, your good quality
mm,
protein, your healthy fats. And then it's also important to stay hydrated. So a lot of us kind of miss the whole water intake. I mean, you either
mm,
find somebody's really strict with it, I've got to have my 2 litres or 3 litres, or you find somebody that is just, I'd probably drink a couple of glasses of water. But actually, staying hydrated is more than just kind of drinking water. It helps us to flush out our toxins. It's good for our
yeah,
skin. Also having herbal teas maybe rather than having so much caffeine, especially in the afternoon.
mm,
So having a look at herbal drinks, or just kind of, you can flavour your water for people that don't like drinking water. It's really
mm,
important that we stay hydrated, because that actually does help us to reduce our stress levels and anxiety levels as well. The other thing would also is prioritising sleep. We don't really give it the importance that it actually deserves. I
yeah,
mean, sleep is so crucial for us to, especially when we're stressed, especially when we're anxious. And I know that kind of seems sometimes you're going around in a vicious circle, but we need to
yeah,
prioritize sleep because that is when our body will rest and repair. And if we don't get good sleep, we all know how we feel the next day. We don't function, we can't concentrate. We eat badly, don't we?
mm.
Because we've not had good sleep, we're not in a good mood. So we're then just choosing kind of really kind of sugary snacks to keep us going through the day.
You're more than a nutritionist. You're actually a coach, because what you're talking about, and we've touched on a few times, is this holistic approach. I think I would have been, my expectations were that if I was engaging with you, you'd basically look at me and go, "You're eating a load of rubbish. You look like rubbish. Here's a diet sheet. There's, eat chicken and broccoli and you'll be fine." But it's a lot more than that, isn't it?
It really is, actually, Paul. And I think that is
Mm.
what the misconception is. A nutritionist is just going to tell me what to eat, and that's it. There's a lot more
Yeah.
to it. We look at, I would like we look at relationships, we look at the environment, we look at what you do for work, what your stress levels are, what do you do at the
Mm.
weekend, what is your lifestyle at the weekend. It is the whole holistic approach, and the idea of it is to get to the root cause of the symptom rather than trying to kind of guess or um, just
Mm.
try, as I will always say, put a plaster over it. It's always digging really deep into looking at everything holistically. And just
Mm.
going back to kind of stress management and anxiety levels, the biggest part is also movement in terms of exercise.
Yeah.
You know, that's a massive
Yeah,
part.
yeah,
I mean,
I've learned you can't out exercise a bad diet, but it's still really important.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's important for your
Mm,
mental well-being as well as physical
yeah,
well-being. There's lots of
yeah,
studies that show it helps with stress and anxiety. And it doesn't mean to say when I say exercise, I usually get a lot of my clients that just look at me, go, "I'm not going to the gym. I've never been to the gym. I've got issues with the gym." We all have lots of people. There's lots of people out there that really would find the gym intimidating. So it's not about
mm,
that. It's looking at things that you could go for a walk. do longer walks over a weekend in nature. There's lots of things that you can do online, isn't there, in terms of exercise, in terms of like yoga or stretching, or there's so many free apps that are available now. Even if you can get out for a 10, 15, 20-minute walk, I always think, we find the time, don't we, to sit in front of the TV. We find the time to flick through our phone on social media. So it is really important to try and find the time, just 10, 15 minutes even to start with, to be able to just get some movement in. It is absolutely crucial. Yeah. The clients that I also work with, that will not do any exercise, because we have to start from somewhere. And it's then kind of going back to looking at meditation, and everyone always thinks, oh my goodness, no, here we go. But it's not. It could just be breathing, like, your box breathing, which helps you immediately reduce that stress and that anxiety. If you've got a presentation or if you've got a massive project that you're working on, it's something that you can do right there and then that gives you that immediate relief. So it's looking at all those kind of avenues as well.
And box breathing is quite famously advocated by the Navy SEALs. So if it's good enough for them...
Absolutely. It is. And that's how I always tell my clients, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough. And it shows it works. And absolutely. Yeah.
Rest and digest. That's the state that the optimal state for the human body to be in, to digest our food, is in that restful state. If you are tense, tight, stressed, you're not actually absorbing the nutrients within the food you eat properly, irrespective of what you eat.
Absolutely, 100%. So basically what happens is, if we are eating in a stressed state, we most certainly are not digesting our food, which means that our digestive system has got to work a lot harder in order to digest it. Now, that's something that I regularly try and speak to my clients about, and we really do work on that. So it's also not kind of running from meeting to meeting. We all do it, gulping down our food. We've all been there, we've done it. But wherever you can is to sit and really kind of not flick through your phone. So engage with your food. Chew your food. Digestion starts way before our food is in our mouth. It starts when we start thinking about food. When you say, oh, my mouth is watering, thinking about that, digestion starts then. So it's really important that we sit, we chew our food, and then that's much easier for us to digest, which means that's going to help with any kind of bloating issues. If we are stressed, that's going to help us to digest that better. So it is quite important that we do eat our food. We call it mindful eating as well.
If you're dealing with somebody that's type 2 diabetic, do you ever advocate the 5-2 diet, the fasting diet, or do you do something else?
That's not something that I've not really dealt with many. I've not dealt with any clients who are diabetic.
You've probably dealt with loads, but they just haven't known it.
Yeah, I have, where they are and they've kind of suddenly been to the doctors, they've been told, and then they are in panic mode. And then they will come to me, for that. And it's always looking again at the anti-inflammatory diet, balancing blood sugar levels, which are really important. And, we will look at that as a protocol.
Yeah. I did the, the Zoe test, where you have to sort of eat these really awful sort of bun things. And I had one of the things you stick on your arms that then connect up with an app to measure your glucose levels. And it was absolutely fascinating.
I agree. It's fascinating to see. But, I also, when I work with my clients, it is all around balancing the blood sugar levels and, the foods that you should eat, foods that you shouldn't eat, and how best to do it. And with Zoe in particular, I most certainly have had a few clients from Zoe following something that might not be in their standard plan, and they can't accommodate for that necessarily, and the clients need something a little bit more bespoke. So I will most certainly work with them, on that basis. But it is always about balancing blood sugar levels. It's a given in my protocols.
Yeah, clearly you're very passionate about what you do, and I think it's evident that has come out of your own journey and that journey of self-discovery. But what were the biggest challenges you faced when transitioning to a healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, a lot of challenges, because it's all so overwhelming in terms of what you need to do. But again, the beauty of going through a nutritionist at that time for me was I was very much handheld to do it. So for me, it was about protein and trying to get the protein from a vegetarian diet, and not realizing all the foods like the lentils and legumes and chickpeas that are very high in protein. So that was probably one of my challenges.
Because most of us don't eat enough protein, do we?
We don't, and that's why it is vital that we eat enough protein, because again, that helps us to balance our blood sugar levels. So it slows down the glucose into our bloodstream, which means that it keeps us fuller for longer, which means that we don't then snack as much. So protein is a big part of protocols, and it was a big learning curve for me as a vegetarian. It was also understanding,
well, as you say, real challenge for a vegetarian to get that level of protein.
It is, yeah, absolutely. So it was learning about the different foods and not sticking to the same diet, because after a while that's what you do. And it was understanding the more variety you introduce in terms of your fruit and your veg, the more diversity it brings to your gut microbiome, and the better that becomes. It was understanding processed foods versus whole foods in particular, because for me back then, when as a vegetarian 25 years ago, it was difficult to get veggie meals. So when you had something like corn that came out as a vegetarian substitute, I just thought, wow, oh my goodness, all my Christmases have come at once. And I genuinely thought I was eating a healthy meal by having, the corn fillets and all of that. I genuinely believed that I was eating healthy. So it was learning around that.
Why wouldn't you?
It is exactly. It's a processed food. So for me, that's quite big. And also coming away from everyone for breakfast, it's either toast or it's either cereal, and coming away from, it can't be toast, it can't be cereal, right? What are my options? Then looking at lunch, and then looking at dinner, looking at all the different veg, what they do, what the benefits are. So it's a big learning curve on that. Hydration, why I should drink more herbal teas, how they're benefiting me. So there's so many things that I've learned, and I'm still learning, and you still kind of put the foundations in and you build upon those. So it's been a huge learning curve.
Yeah. Drink more green tea. I always think with green tea, you should never brew it for that long, because it's such a strong flavour. I think it puts so many people off. They go, oh my goodness me. But actually, if it's like 30 seconds done, it's a much lighter flavour and more tolerable for most people. So
I totally agree with you, Paul.
What common misconceptions about nutrition do you often encounter from your clients?
It's usually, can you please help me to lose weight? And what's the kind of latest faddy diet to help me lose weight? That is misconception.
And let's talk about diets, because it's such a powerful label, isn't it? Right, on a diet, and it's so temporary. And clearly the diet industry is a multi-billion pound industry for a reason, and it's because most of them don't work really.
Exactly.
Or they would do if you stayed on it for the rest of your life, but it's about adopting a lifestyle that you're going to go through the rest of your life with.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with you, Paul, because a diet is, it's short term. It's never going to last. You're not going to do it for the rest of your life. So for me, it's more about putting the foundations in place. And when I don't know, when you are not following it, you very quickly know how to go back to the basics of that foundation. But also, one of the things that I've not said is, yes, we talk about wholesome foods and we talk about a holistic approach. I am also a massive, huge believer in the 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I enjoy myself with the foods that I want to eat without the guilt. And that's quite important. So it's not all doom and gloom, as so to speak. And I think it's important that you are able to enjoy foods, because if you don't have that relationship with foods, then it's that much more difficult, and it adds another layer of stress and anxiety.
So 80-20, sort of 80% good stuff, 20% little treats, because otherwise life becomes more less tolerable.
Life, isn't it? Yeah, you've got to be able to enjoy yourself, and that's really important.
Are there any success stories you want to share? Is anything in particular that comes to mind?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got a few clients. They are all success stories because they've put in the hard work, and that is important. You've got to be prepared to put in the changes and the hard work. But in particular, I've dealt with a client who struggled with PTSD, and she came to me for stress and anxiety in particular. We looked at her diet. We looked at putting a lot of changes in place, but in particular, the way she coped with it was through alcohol. We looked at a lot of avenues in terms of helping her, put in lots of protocols. And at the end of the program, she did say that she could cry with happiness with the changes that it had brought to her. Just, her anxiety levels had decreased, her stress levels definitely. She was able not to rely so much on alcohol and see that as I'm stressed, so I'll have a glass of wine. There is that. I've also had a client who has been on, he struggled with reflux, and, has been on medication for 20 plus years, and doing some functional testing, again, has totally changed his life and his intake of medication. He now no longer takes his medication, and that's massive, having to rely on medication for 20 plus years and then not being able to not take it through diet and through lifestyle is a big win.
So what are your future goals and aspirations as a nutritional therapist?
I would like to continue to help people. I work with a lot of people who struggle with stress, anxiety, fatigue, sleep, and gut health issues. And I'd like to continue on that journey to help people do that. And I do that through kind of one-to-one, but also using platforms like this, and also doing what I've started recently is a lot of corporate lunchtime webinars, which help educate staff, both online and in person. So I'd like to continue on that journey just to help educate people so they can feel better and happier about themselves.
So if someone wants to start their journey with you and perhaps do a one-to-one or one of these webinars that you mentioned, how do they get in touch with you?
My website is pkrnutrition.com. And my email is hello@pkrnutrition.com.
Well, that's fantastic. And it's been really insightful and interesting and good to share some of my personal stories with you too. So really thank you for your time today. Parvs, it's been great. Thank you very much.